Hello, hello, hello. This is Danny Ceballos with Unleash Consulting and the Best Boss Bootcamp podcast. Welcome to your listener. So excited to have you here and very excited to have our first return guest. Very excited to bring back my friend and colleague, Doni Landefeld. And it just so happens when Doni and I spoke last time in an earlier podcast around leadership, it is the most listened to podcast so far with the Best Boss Bootcamp podcast. So and that was even before I invited her to come back. She's just so awesome. I was so excited to bring her back. So it's just great that we're having our most, quote unquote, most popular guest back for a return encore engagement. So welcome, Doni. So glad to have you here.
Thanks, Danny. It is fun to be back together. We always have a great time. It's kind of like a little combination of being unleashed with some metamorphosis sprinkled in.
Oh, you didn't say that. That's so funny. That is a home run. That's brilliant. Brilliant. Exactly. Let's unleash some more metamorphosis for our folks here. Let me first introduce you a little bit, and then we'll go into some Q&A. We're going to be talking about, as everybody knows, because they see the title, we're going to be talking about something called EQ, or emotional intelligence, and how to explode that, how to really take advantage of that for you as a manager and a leader. So let me introduce Doni and we'll get going. So Doni serves mid-level through senior business leaders to up-level their skills and performance. She leveraged former leadership roles in academia to create Metamorphosis Coaching and Consulting. Specialty areas include leadership, communication, emotional intelligence, and mental resilience. Doni's education ranges from a BS in music education, up to a PhD. This is Dr. Landefeld, everyone. PhD in organizational psychology. She is also a certified personal and executive coach and also certified in positive intelligence and emotional intelligence. Doni is also a musician. Doni, remind everybody, what's the instrument that you play and how long have you been playing it?
Yeah. Oh gosh, how long? Since I was 9 years old, I played the double bass and a little bit of electric bass too. So
Wow.
more than 40 years, I'll just say that.
No, that's impossible
Yeah.
because you're only 25. So I don't know how you did that. But anyway, it's great to have you here. And so, Doni, I wanted to talk to you about, you and I have connected in a bunch of different ways, a lot around positive intelligence. And listener, just in case you're not sure what that is, it's a field of study that both Doni and I use in our coaching that talks about mental fitness and resilience with our mind. And Doni talked a lot about the connection when we've talked in other ways, talked about the connection and the overlap between positive intelligence, what I just described, and emotional intelligence, or EQ, which has been around for quite a while. So I have enough knowledge to be dangerous around EQ. But Doni, can you tell us what is EQ and why is it important for our middle manager listeners to really understand and leverage their EQ?
Sure. All right. So I love this topic. Emotional intelligence gets me so juiced up, jazzed up. So
Right on.
basically, EQ it's a set of skills that enables us to do all kinds of useful things, such as understanding what other people want and need, understanding what we want and need, helping us to find ways for those wants and needs to fit in with others. It also helps us to stay calm under pressure. It helps us to be the kind of person that other people want to be around. So that's really important for mid-level managers. And it also helps us to use our emotions to energize ourselves for achievement. In short, Danny, emotional intelligence is what helps us to be effective, impactful. It helps us to influence and persuade, and it's a must-have for mid-level managers. It really is the secret sauce, and developing it is what makes good managers great.
Awesome. Well, that's exactly what we need to hear, right? This is all about upping, as you said in your bio, it's about up leveling. So I know the managers and leaders who are listening to this podcast right now are already good, really good, and want to be better because they're listening to this podcast. So Doni, can you first of all, before you tell us how they do that, can you tell, so what does somebody with high EQ look like or present like versus somebody that doesn't have very high EQ?
Sure. Sure. So someone in high EQ is able to relate well to others. They're just that kind of person that you enjoy being around. They make you feel good about yourself. They're able to understand their emotions and regulate them. And they're also able to really hone in and understand how other people feel, their emotions, and then help to really leverage those and bring out the best. So it's understanding, it's connecting, it's leveraging, it's also, as I mentioned before, it's staying calm when you're under pressure. It's not falling apart. One of the things I like with the overlap of positive intelligence is it involves recovery. So if we have some sort of setback, someone who's high in EQ is able to recover and bounce back much more quickly. They don't shut down, they don't fold or crumble when they're faced with adversity. Now, in contrast to that, someone who's low in EQ, there's this the thing about managers and leaders is they have a specific skill set, a technical knowledge, or they might be subject matter experts. And they tend to get promoted because of that. They don't always have the people skill part of it, the EQ part of the equation. So what
Amen.
happens is they get promoted to their level of incompetence. And that's when they derail. So they might not be relating to someone else. As I mentioned, in contrast with high EQ, they might crumble and fall apart when things are tough. Hello, COVID, things like that. I mean, that could be a breaking point for someone if they're not high in EQ. And now, as we're navigating the changing landscape of hybrid work and having to innovate and pivot and just so much changing in organizations right now. I mean, it's almost like a culture change for a lot of organizations. They're having to do that if they want to stay competitive and thrive in this environment. So someone with low EQ is just, they don't have the skill set to adapt and respond to that. They might be out of touch with others. Heck, they might be out of touch with themselves because, Danny, the alpha and the omega of emotional intelligence is first self-awareness. You've got
Yes.
to understand yourself and really know where these thoughts and feelings are coming from before you can relate to someone else.
Totally love that. Love that. Love that. Love that. It's reminding me of, leading. One needs to lead oneself before one can lead others, right? And it's also
Mm-hmm.
reminding me of, the most important thing is to know thyself as a leader. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you're absolutely right. Most managers and leaders promoted for their technical competence to the level of their incompetence. You're absolutely right. Don't always pay attention to that leading self, right? So I've got these outward skills. They serve me really well. I do a budget really well. All of that. That's what's important. Not how I'm feeling or how I'm relating. It's just the work that's getting done. And I think you would agree.
Right.
I mean, that's, as you said, that's the alpha and the omega is the work that we do on ourselves. So Donnie, can you tell? So how do people measure their EQ? How do they know if they're high or low?
Well, what I like to use is this is where assessments come in really handy. And I highly recommend using an assessment for measuring EQ and where someone's level of competence is, because it's the only way to then determine which skill area or maybe a couple skill areas we're going to develop and grow. So the one that I like to use, and this is the one that I'm certified in. So I might be a little bit biased. I'm just going to put that out there, but it's been
Fair
around
enough.
for decades. And it's considered, remember when iPads came out? They were the gold standard for notebooks, for tablets.
For tablets. Uh-huh.
So the Barone EQI is kind of the gold standard for measuring emotional intelligence. And what I like about it is it's a true assessment. It shows where someone is, and it's a very extensive report that you get when you take this assessment, and it will show developmental areas. And then what's nice for us as coaches is there's a lot of recommendations, tips, and strategies. So it's truly a springboard for developing emotional intelligence. And it's better than just kind of, throwing darts and shooting blindly. Well, I think I might need to develop impulse control or problem solving, but doing the assessment makes it crystal clear. There are a lot others out there on the market. So I'm going to put that out as a caveat. And it really, truly is, you get what you pay for. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not trying to say that the Barone EQI is expensive. It's not cost prohibitive, but
Okay.
it's backed by science and research. It's valid. It's reliable. It's going to do what it says it's going to do. If you use it as a pre and post tool, which I sometimes do in my engagements, you can then actually see the growth that happens over time.
Love that.
Some of the
Love
others
that.
that are out there are tests, which is there's basically a right or a wrong answer. You don't want to do that. You want to find out where your current level is and where we can go from there.
Okay. Okay. And not to get too into the weeds on this, but so could one find the Barone assessment online, or does one need to connect with a coach or a consultant or a company to access that?
Yeah. So you can go to multihealthsystems.com, MHS.com, and certainly read a lot more about there are varying types of reports. You can do one for groups, you can do one for
Okay.
individuals, you can do one for
Okay.
leaders, you can do 360. So I always like to say to my clients, educate yourself first. Figure out which one makes sense. You will need to find a certified administrator to give the assessment and then generate the report and the result. So
Okay. Got it.
that I believe there are ways on their website that you can find someone like that, or I'll throw my hat in the ring. I'm
Of
happy to do that
course.
as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, listener, if you are interested, go to it's mhs.com. Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
mhs.com. Take a look at the assessments. And if you're interested, and I highly, for what it's worth, support Doni when she says take an assessment, not one of the tests. The tests that's the same with a lot of different areas. They can be very misleading and not very useful. In fact, sometimes dangerous. So to take a full assessment, and please, yes, please consider Doni as the person Dr. Landefeld, who will help you process and understand that assessment. And Doni, we're going to ask for your, the best contact information for you in just a
Sure.
moment. Okay, that's great. So we understand now what EQ is, what high EQ versus low EQ looks like, how to measure it, how to assess it. Doni, maybe there's a couple of stories of either clients you've worked with or folks that you know of that have done EQ work, development work that you could share with us just to illustrate the power of understanding and exploding
Sure.
one's EQ.
Sure. I'm going to give you an example that's pretty common. I'll get a lot of calls either from HR departments or from mid to senior level execs who realize, okay, something's got to give. I need a little bit of help. And they want to grow. They want to develop. They want to make a difference. They want to stay in their position at least, and hopefully work their way up the ladder to higher levels. So the case that typically comes before me is what I'm going to call an abrasive manager.
Mm-hmm.
So this is someone who is not relating well to others. And if we incorporate a little bit of positive intelligence in here, let's call this person has a very high controller saboteur.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, our saboteurs are also strengths that we overuse or abuse. So you'll see a lot of people in positions of management or leadership who have a high controller. They're direct, they're confident, they're driven, they're pragmatic. Those are all positive qualities. Those are definitely strengths. It becomes a challenge. It becomes an opportunity when someone is overusing that. So, my way or the highway with their team. Well, that might work. That might get you a few little goodies along the way. But over time, you're going to find out that your team is not going to learn. They're not going to grow. And they're certainly not going to step up and take initiative because they're going to feel stymied. So this is where if someone's on the fence about the EQ and they think, well, it's kind of touchy feely. No, let's do a reframe on that. What is so touchy feely about generating trust, about generating inspiration and motivation? Those are the things that are going to get your team members engaged, keep them happy. They're going to want to do the work for you. So we have this abrasive style that comes to us. And they definitely have that subject matter expert or that technical piece that we referenced earlier.
Right.
They're having difficulties figuring out how to instill some inspiration, how to motivate their staff, how to delegate.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds very simple. For a lot of managers, for a lot of leaders, it requires taking some risk, some letting go. There are ways we can get around that. Scaffolding, very gradual. You just do a little bit at a time. It doesn't mean throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So in an instance like that, now I've been doing this long enough that I kind of have my theories in terms of which EQ skills we will hone in on or develop. But to double check that, we take that assessment. A lot of times it'll come back and say, all right, we need to develop empathy and impulse control. Mm-hmm. And now I'm going to throw one more thing at you, Danny. So the other thing I love about EQ is in the model I use, this is the Barone EQI model. There are 15 different skills. I have yet
to meet. 15 or 50?
15.
Okay.
Gosh, 50 would be overwhelming. 15 is enough. I have yet to meet anyone who is a home run proficient in all 15. And that's the good news. It means we all have the potential to learn, grow, and become a stronger, better version of ourselves. So with that abrasive manager, that abrasive leader, developing that empathy, developing the impulse control it's knowing when to respond and when not to respond. The empathy, it's all about relating, understanding, and connecting to that underlying emotion, the feelings of your staff members, so you know what lights them up. So that would be one example that it's a very common one. I have another one, but I want to make sure we're.
But so and that those the lack of or the low impulse control and the low empathy, are those pretty? You said those are pretty common. Is that what you see in your clients and with leaders? I mean, it sounds like that would be pretty common.
It tends to be two of the higher for those who are very controlling, very direct. And as we know, those characteristics can definitely generate a lot of success.
And they're rewarded oftentimes.
And they are. Then we get to a point where it plateaus and it stops serving us because there are many personalities that make the world go round. Sooner or later, you're going to come in contact with someone that style does not resonate with. So we need to have a few different options in our toolkit.
Fair enough. That sounds great. Now tell us the second example, the second story.
Okay. All right. So another one is, assertiveness is another EQ skill area. And this is really, assertiveness is not about being aggressive. It's establishing a safe place where everyone is able to contribute. In fact, I know we're going to talk about books later on, and that's another one I just thought of. It's establishing that psychological safety. So your team members feel safe to learn, they feel safe to contribute, and they also feel safe to a certain extent to challenge the status quo. Mm-hmm. Because it's only when we innovate and offer ideas that we can grow as a team, as a unit, and as an organization. So back to assertiveness. Assertiveness, establishing safety, everyone contributes. I'm going to incorporate a little bit of positive intelligence here too. Okay. So we often see someone who has a strong avoider and or a strong pleaser, saboteur. So these are people that really do like to commit. They like to get things done, but they might be overcommitting themselves to people. So if they're a little lower in assertiveness, we kind of know where that's going to go, right? They're not going to communicate themselves at the level where they are maybe getting the most important tasks and projects done. They're going to get overwhelmed. They're going to get stressed out. They might get burnt out.
Yeah.
So that's another one that I see that presents itself fairly frequently.
Huh. And so these just sound like archetypes of so many managers and leaders that I know that I work with, and I think to your point, it's these qualities that there's a great book by, I can't remember, blanking, but the name of the book is "What Got You Here Won't Get You There."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
I
this
know it.
idea, right, that
Uh-huh.
these things that serve us very, very well now are in fact getting in our own way. So I really appreciate that that we're talking about the qualities and the skills that can kind of break through that barrier so that we can, because you can still harness those skills, right, to be assertive and all those things, but to use them for good and not for evil kind of thing. So understanding where that boundary is and then breaking through that takes a different skill set, like emotional intelligence, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So tell
Absolutely.
us, so Donnie, can you tell us, so what are some things that folks can do if they haven't taken the assessment, although I hope they will, and I hope they'll actually give you a call, but if they're not, what can they do right now to kind of
Mm-hmm.
explode their emotional intelligence
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one
in
of
the
the
best way
first
possible?
steps is sure. I think one of the first steps is to get some books, to read up on it, to educate yourself a little bit about the topic. Maybe begin developing some ideas or theories of where your developmental areas might lie. So, reading some books on the topic is definitely a first step. I would say for mid-level managers is to also ask for help in their organizations. Having a mentor, having a coach, having some sort of trusted advisor that they can turn to help them grow and develop, and also ask their organizations to invest in them to grow that,
Yeah.
because the
Right.
investments are going to yield dividends.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
organizations, as we know, um, employees that leave their organizations are not quitting their positions. They're quitting their superiors or some sort of cultural problem. So when an organization invests in the growth and development of their employees, they're not only serving that employee, they're serving themselves. They're saving money.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
ask for help. Read, take an assessment, and then find one or two after you've taken the assessment. I like to say choose one, maybe two skill areas to develop, not any more than that in the beginning because it's going to be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's super helpful. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, when a client, when you have somebody who takes the assessment and they're working with you, generally, can you say generally, maybe this isn't a fair question, how long it takes to see noticeable improvement in just one area? Does it
So
take
what
months,
I've
years?
no. It truly depends upon the individual. I will say that just as a full disclosure, because we really do want someone to be honest, open, and willing to do the work. That being said, there are some averages, some generalities, and I've found that 6 months tends to be kind of the sweet spot for some transformation to happen. So 6 months, and then a lot of times clients will either want to keep it going or select a new area, because it's like
Mm-hmm.
you get a
Mm-hmm.
taste of it and you see the
Mm-hmm.
impact and you just want to keep going.
Totally makes sense. Awesome. Thank you for putting the, I think
Yeah.
folks will hear this and think, oh, is this going to be a lifetime commitment? It's like, no, we break it
Nah.
down and we work on one area at a time. Excellent. Donnie, you mentioned some books for folks, and I know you have some titles that you want to show folks and recommend. So maybe you can share some of that with us now.
Sure. And I will say it was really difficult for me to narrow it down to one. So I didn't do that. I pulled three off my
Fair enough.
shelf. So one of the seminal authors on EQ is Daniel Goleman.
Yes, that's
And
who I know.
the one book that I really like in particular that he wrote in collaboration with Boyatzis and Annie McKee is called Primal Leadership. So the cover might look a little bit different because I've had this for quite a long time. This is great for managers. It'll cycle through emotional intelligence, the different leadership styles, when they make the most sense to use. Highly recommend that one. I've got another one, and this again kind of goes back to some of the theory and practicum, as well as the individual who helped developed the model that I use. It's called the EQ Edge, Steven
Okay.
Stein.
Okay, great.
And then I have a new one that I'm actually reading right now. And this is from a colleague. This is actually I write a regular column for Emotional Intelligence magazine. And this is the gal who reached out to me, who is also an EQ guru. It's called The EQ Deficiency. It's by Brittany Nicole Connor Savarda. I know that's a little bit of a mouthful. She's amazing. EQ Deficiency.
Awesome.
So really enjoying this one right now. Yeah.
This sounds wonderful. I love how EQ continues to stay relevant. I mean, I was first introduced to it, I don't know, 25 years ago. So, Daniel Goleman was it. It was the five, but it continues to be relevant and continues to be updated in ways that make sense, especially in this very strange world that we're in right now with so many different demands than we had 25 years ago. Well, outstanding, Doni. This has been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your insights, your advice, resources. And if folks want to, and I hope they will, get in touch with you, what's the best way of getting in touch with you?
Sure. So I think the easiest way is to go to my website, and I have a little shortcut URL. So Coach Doni, Coach, and then my nickname is DONI, CoachDoni.com.
Great. CoachDonnie.com, not CoachDanny.com, because that doesn't exist, people. CoachDonnie.com. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I think we actually made good on your quip about unleashing metamorphosis for our folks. So thank you so much, Doni, and I can't wait to have you back another time again to share your expertise and insight. Thank you so much, Doni.
It's my pleasure, Danny. Anytime. I appreciate you.
Wonderful. Me too. Appreciating you. All right. Take care, everybody. This is Danny Ceballos with Unleash Consulting and the Best Boss Bootcamp podcast. We'll see you again real soon. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.